Hello, my name is John Eagan. I'm an author and an artist. If we have time, we'll talk about that later. Right now, I want you to focus your attention on this particular cloud. This cloud is floating above the church I go to in New Jersey. It caught my attention because it's what's called an iridescent cloud, or solar halos, which have tiny ice crystals that cause light to be diffracted, spread out, creating this rainbow light effect in the cloud. When I decided to take it home and take a look at the picture, I realized there was something supernatural about this cloud. When I start to explain the image in the cloud, it's going to pop out at you, and you're not going to see anything but that image. And look right here in the center where I'm circling the cloud. Is that an eye there? Now look over here where I'm pointing. Is that another eye? Now look over here. Is that a nose? Now over here. Is that a mouth? Now you see it, don't you? This is definitely a head and a face. It's a face with long hair and a beard just like Jesus. Who else's head and face would it be hovering over his church but Jesus? As you can see, it's not a happy face at all. And I think I know why. This video is about the supernatural. I'm going to take you from the ordinary world into the extraordinary world. I'm going to tell you a true story about a demon who entered my house and possessed it. I've told this story many times in many podcasts. When I told it on Coast to Coast, who have 9 million listeners, they crashed my website, all clamoring to get in and see what this was all about. It's up and running again, and I'll take you there during the extraordinary story. But I have to ask you, do you consider yourself to be an adventurous person? Do you believe in demons? Can you handle a scary story that may give you nightmares tonight? Do you have any interest in what's going to happen to your soul when you die? This story will scare you and enlighten you on many levels. The image of Jesus appeared in that cloud, but a real demon appeared in my house and delivered a message everyone should hear. Every time I hear of an encounter a person has with a ghost or an angel or a demon, I wonder about that person a little bit. I'm a bit skeptical myself. I wonder if he or she is a legitimate person. Are they a little crazy? Are they doing this for attention? That's why I'm going to give you a brief history about my life and who I am. By this apparition I had, a small veil was lifted for a moment in time, as I was able to peer in through a dimension unseen by most people. I could actually see through a threshold into the paranormal realm. We're all going to be faced with this dimension someday, that fifth dimension, that spiritual dimension. No matter what you do, no matter where you live, no matter how you live, in the end, we're all going to be standing on the precipice of that event horizon of that fifth dimension, that spiritual dimension. I'm not just talking to you, I'm talking to everybody out there. Everybody out there is going to be thrust into this abyss. There's going to be forces there, and I used to think for some, but now I believe for many, evil forces they're going to have to contend with. Today you're going to get an understanding of those evil forces and how they will try to manipulate you in that paranormal realm of that fifth dimension. In a short time it'll take me to tell you this story, 13,000 people will die in the world. A good portion of them will be in the hands of this evil one that we're going to speak about today. I think you'll be enlightened a lot on a deep level, more than you could possibly imagine right now, and it's quite frightening. So be prepared. This apparition I had is the antithesis of any apparition I've ever heard or read about. As I said earlier, we're going to take you from the ordinary world into the extraordinary world. Think about it. How many times in the course of history does an entity break through a dimension to deliver a message, especially an evil, demonic one? Today I ask you to be open-minded, be ready. You may not sleep well tonight, may even have bad dreams. That's what people tell me. It's terrifying and jarring. I wrote this book about the whole experience. It's the only book ever written that will take you as close as humanly possible right into the devil's realm. You'll be frightened, that I can guarantee. Now look, I'm not a crazy person. I'm not looking for attention. I was given a few talents in my life that got me a lot of attention. I'm a best-selling author. I'm an artist whose work has been seen throughout the world. I only bring up that fact that I'm an artist because I have the ability to draw and paint and sculpt exactly what I see, right down to the last detail. Just so you could have a visual of what this malevolent apparition looked like. that appear to me in my house, you can go to John-Eagan, EAGAN.com, and see the cover of the book. That is exactly what I was confronted with. It helps to have a visual to look at while I tell you this incredible story. Here's a quick, brief history about who I am and where I came from. I was born in Brooklyn, and I went to an all-male parochial Catholic school. We were poor. I was one of 6 kids. I used to have to cut out cardboard pieces and put them in my shoes where the holes were every day. The churches were full back then. Going to church today is now passé. They did a study. 70% of the people of my religion have dropped out altogether. They lost their fervor. The lines between good and evil are blurred today. You must be vigilant about counterfeit teachings. These creatures, these demons, are constantly building a trapdoor of deceit designed for us to fall. They don't want us in churches and synagogues. The millennials today look to technology for answers. Instead of looking for God for answers, they look into their cell phone for answers. When they look into their cell phones, it looks like everyone is doing better than they are. It makes them very depressed. Suicide among boys have doubled and tripled among girls. 1 million people commit suicide this year. The answers people are looking for is not in technology. Look for the knowledge of God, not the knowledge of man. The spirit of worldliness leads us to vanity, pride, arrogance, selfishness, and sometimes suicide. So my whole family moves from Brooklyn to New Jersey. I go to the college in New Jersey. I become a special ed teacher. For extra money, I work as a bartender at night. This is where I met a lot of good people and a lot of wicked people. But I liked them all. A lot of these people were atheists and into the occult. But I noticed over the years, a lot of them died from accidents, overdose, suicides, and cancers. They died as they lived with no remorse. I decided to pray for these lost souls. This is the prerequisite of why this demon creature possessed my house. Now I'm ready to tell you about this demon. How it got into the house. What it did when it was in the house. What it told me. What it did before it left. And how I got it out of the house. What I'm going to do right now is describe the layout of the house so you can get an idea of what happened here. I have a house on about an acre of property. It's about 150 feet from the street. When I pull into the driveway, I drive up to the house, and on the left are the garage doors. The house is split, built on a hill, so the garage is under the house. You put your car into the garage and close the garage door, and there's another metal door between the garage and the basement. I was married and had 3 boys growing up in this house. I finished off the basement and cut it in half and made an apartment down there. My last boy, Johnny, graduated from college and wanted to move back home to start his own business. So we used that apartment downstairs in the basement. When you come in from the garage and you open the metal door, you're in a finished basement. On your right are wooden steps that go up to the kitchen. That's how most of us come into the house. We don't use the front door. It's an open house plan, so you can hear most things that's going on in the house and in the basement. On the other side of the kitchen and dining room is the living room. The living room has a sectional couch like most people have. That's where I sit in the afternoon and do my prayers and meditation. Everything was fine for years. My books sold well and I was able to retire early. I sit on the couch every afternoon and do my meditation and prayer. One day, about a year ago, I was sitting on the couch in the middle of the afternoon saying my prayers, and I hear that metal door in the basement slam. Yeah, slam like that. Like I never heard it before. And I was thinking, who would slam the door that violently? Did my son have a car accident and break up with his girlfriend? I know my wife couldn't even slam that door that hard even if she tried. So I get off the couch and I walk to the kitchen. I look downstairs, look down the wooden steps into the basement. Usually when somebody comes into the basement and into the garage and they turn the lights on. The lights were not on. I became a little concerned. So I go into the office where the computer is and I look into the security cameras. I look around, nobody is on the property. I look at the cameras that cover the garage doors. Nobody opened the garage doors. So I decided I better go downstairs to investigate a little bit. The first thing I sense when I reach the bottom of the steps in the basement is this feeling that there is something sinister, ominous, menacing. The only word to describe it is an evil presence down there. This evil presence was something you just can't describe. So I started checking everywhere, under the steps, behind the washer and dryer, behind the workout equipment. I go through the apartment door. I check in the closet there. I check under the bed. I check in the furnace room. The windows down there have bars on them, so nobody could actually go crashing through it. I would have heard that. I just feel weird and uneasy. This evil presence stays with me the whole time. I decide there's nothing down there. So I go back upstairs into the living room, and I'm sitting on the couch again. A few minutes later, I hear something very heavy walking up the steps from the basement, heading into the kitchen. And I'm thinking to myself, nobody walks up those steps like that. And you have to be a heavy entity, a heavy person to walk and make that kind of noise when you walk up the steps. So I'm just sitting there. So just imagine yourself sitting there, and you know nobody's home, and you start hearing this kind of noise on the steps. From that, I start to get a sense of what's really happening in this house. But I tell myself, don't dwell on it. It's probably something that will just pass. Not long after that, my wife comes home and enters into the basement, as she normally does, and comes up the steps into the kitchen. First thing she says to me is, everything all right? When I came into the basement, I felt something evil was present. I didn't want to agree with her because I didn't want to frighten her about my suspicions. She said, are you okay? You don't look that good. So she gets a cup of coffee and she sat down on the sectional couch and with me. And what I thought was nefarious behavior was actually this malevolent apparition, this malevolent creature using its methodology on me. I was totally naive about this creature and how it behaved. It was telling me by using its methodology, it was present in the house, it was possessing the house, it was in control. This is not a social visit, and it wasn't just passing through. I didn't realize it until this malevolent creature decided to use its methodology on my wife. That's when I began to realize it. About 10 minutes or so, when my wife was sitting next to me on the couch having a coffee, the creature started walking up the steps again, very slowly, just like it did to me. So she's listening to this, right? She asked me, "Is Johnny home? What's those people walking? Is there something walking around? Is somebody coming up the steps?" I said, "I don't think so." She said, "Who walks up the steps like that?" And she yells, "Johnny, is that you?" All we hear is that noise. She gets off the couch and says again, "Johnny, is that you?" All we hear is this creaking noises. She goes into the kitchen and looks down the steps, just like I did, and yells, "Johnny, you down there?" She comes back into the living room and asks me, "What's going on?" I don't have any answer, and I don't want to frighten her, so I'm still thinking this thing is going to pass. She sits on the couch just looking at me. And I tell her again, I don't know what's going on. There's a hallway behind us that leads down to the bedrooms. We both started hearing footsteps. Yeah, like that. Walking down the hallway. Now there's nobody there. We both look. Nobody's in the hallway. You can see the whole hallway. Then we start hearing this scratching noise on the walls. All along the wall, as it proceeded down the hallway. Then suddenly, the bedroom door slams. Like that. She says, "This is really weird and scary. Aren't you going to check and see who slammed the bedroom door?" I got up and checked back there, and I said, "There's nothing there. I couldn't see anything." Things seemed quiet for a while, until that night. We both go to sleep, and I usually lock all the bedroom doors, of course, to the house and to the bedroom. And you're supposed to feel safe when your doors are all locked, aren't you? About 3 o'clock in the morning, this heavy breathing right next to my head. I start hearing that. It starts, so I feel that evil presence again. So, as I said earlier, this creature started using his methodology on my wife. The next night, the breathing starts again, only even louder this time, while we were sleeping. My wife wakes up, turns on the light, asks me, "What is that heavy breathing noise?" Again, I didn't want to say anything. I'm still hoping this will just go away on its own. All this happened last summer. Now we have a beach house. So in the summertime we go down there on the weekends. We go down to the beach house. Family and friends come down and hang out with us. Sometimes my son Johnny comes down with his girlfriend. This weekend he stayed home. He called down there and called his mother, my wife Lillian, and asked her, are you guys down at the beach house?" And she said, "Yeah, why?" She goes, "Well, because when I'm downstairs, I hear something heavy walking upstairs. And then when I come upstairs, I hear walking in the basement." He says, "And when I'm upstairs, I hear my glass closet door sliding back and forth by itself, all by itself." And he says, "This is really creepy." My wife says to Johnny, "When we get home, your father's going to have to talk to you." So when we get home, I tell Johnny and my wife, look, I'm not sure, but I think something evil's gotten into this house." My wife says, you have to take care of it. I'll live at the beach house if I have to." She says, "Go to the church and get a priest to do an exorcism on the house." I said to my wife, everyone at the church knows us as a normal family for the past 20 years. My wife has a garden party here every spring. The priests come, the parishioners come. My wife has a faith group that meets here. Now I'm supposed to go there and let them know that there's a demon in this house? I'm so ambivalent about it. I keep thinking maybe this is going to go away. That heavy breathing happens again during the night. Really heavy this time. So my wife wakes up. She's adamant. She said, "You have to get an exorcism done on this house, or she's going to have to live at the beach house." So I tell her, "Okay, I'll find a priest who does exorcisms." This creature must have known what I was planning, because soon after that it manifested itself. Now, let me tell you something. I never invited this creature here. I never had a seance. I never had a Ouija board. I never used tarot cards to open the door for this creature to come in. I don't suggest anybody do that, because once you do, I think you allow this creature to do you harm by permitting it to do its worst. And I don't believe anybody cursed me for something like this to happen. Now I know, and I want everybody to know, who is curious about contacting this demonic world, that these creatures are deleterious, only capable of causing harm and damage. Okay, so now I'm sitting on the sofa. That's where I usually do my prayers and meditation. I say my prayers on the rosary. I'm Catholic, that's how I say a lot of my prayers. So I set the rosaries down on the glass table right next to me on my right side. Suddenly, it begins. On my right, between the glass end table and the living room wall, the air starts to ripple, just like when you throw a rock into water and you see that rippling effect. I thought my eyes were having a spasm or something. I blinked my eyes and I tried to clear them up. My eyes weren't the problem. The whole area of that living room turns from rippling and starts to turn into a raging blue fire, like an inferno. That's right, I said blue fire. I've never seen or heard anything like this before. Now, a lot of what I'm going to tell you tonight is unfathomable, unable to be explained, or unable to be understood fully. But because I'm an artist, I was able to memorize every aspect of this creature, just as I would if I was going to draw you, if you were standing in front of me. So now I'm looking at this blue fire. Now we have fire in our fourth dimension, which is a miracle in itself and serves a purpose. Keeps us warm, it cooks our food. You could forge two different steels together, the resulting steel is stronger than the two steels you forged together. I've come to realize this blue fire of this particular dimension is a miracle that serves a purpose too. The purpose is chastisement, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. Suddenly emerging from the wall of blue raging fire, what I first thought was something that looked like long pieces of coral was coming into my living room through the fires very slowly. The only way I could describe how this creature entered my house is by asking, have you ever gone to a board meeting and all the subordinates arrive early and they get to their seats nervously, shuffling their notes, fixing their ties, adjusting their clothes? Then the big CEO arrives when he feels like it, on his own time. He owns the room when he arrives. Walks slowly over to the superior chair. Starts when he feels like it. Well, that's how this demon entered my house. That's how he was passing through this raging fire. That's when I got up from the chair and I stood in front of it, but a few steps away from it. Where I was standing, if I had to, I could head out through the living room, into the kitchen, out the sliding back doors, into the backyard. So I didn't feel like it was cornering me. But it knew that too. I didn't know at the time, but these long pieces of what I thought looked like coral was actually horns. Slowly, these long pieces were about 3 foot long, came in through the fire. Then another horn would emerge. Then I saw another and another, all very slowly. Finally, I saw what it actually was. They were actually horns coming out of the creature's forehead. Finally, very slowly, the full head of the beast emerges from the blue wall of fire. The beast's head was blue, not red like you see in books and magazines. Every picture of devil I've ever seen in books or magazines were red, and the fires were red too. And he didn't enter the way you see in most reenactments on television. When I say this is the antithesis of any kind of an apparition I've ever heard or read about or seen on TV. Usually on TV, when you see the reenactment, when the creature comes through a dimension, there's lightning, flashing, wind blowing, chairs flying around. I said earlier this creature was using its methodology on me. It did not want to scare me, running out of the house. It didn't make me feel like I was cornered. If it came in like that, I would just probably run out of the house for fear for my life. This was an intelligent, organized, powerful creature. It had a message. It wanted to deliver a message. And if I knew it came in wild like that, I'd probably just run out of the house immediately. When I saw all these impressive horns, it looked like what you might imagine was a hierarchy demon in whatever chain of command that might exist in hell, with all those horns coming out of the top of his head, and now totally engulfed in this blue raging fire. I had studied demons since this encounter, and there is some form of hierarchy in the netherworld. According to people who perform exorcisms, the spiritual practice of evicting demons, there are times when people are possessed by many demons all at the same time. The exorcist must expel lower-ranking demons first, long before the higher-ranking demons will leave. And the highest-ranking demon is the hardest of all to expel. Sometimes it takes months, even years, of exorcism before it will leave. There are hierarchical levels in this dark world, known as rulers, authorities, and powers. There's many, many spiritual forces of evil. So now at this point, only his head emerged. The top of his head looked like the top of a horseshoe crab, hard and bony. That's where all the horns grew out of. It seemed to me that as far as it was allowed to go, just his head, I was happy about that. That's why I say this was a gift, because it didn't harm me and I learned a lot about the netherworld. You know, if you came and visited me and I was in a prison and I was there for an offense I didn't commit, the first thing I would say was, to you or anybody else, I didn't commit this crime. I don't deserve to be here. Get me out of here. I'm innocent. This is not the case for this creature. In the midst of chastisement, he owned it. For him it seemed just. For him he deserved this punishment. He had no qualms with it at all. Whatever happens between this creature and God back before time began, it's settled. Now, I could see in his face that it was 100% hatred. Not 99.9, but 100% hatred. I now try to tell people, if they have any hatred in there for their brother or their sister or their neighbor, for anyone of any different race, religion, or nationality, get it out of your heart before you leave here as a spirit. Because what's in your heart is embedded into your spirit. When you pass, you will drift right into these creatures' nets. So root it out now while you still have the chance. This is where creatures like this can snare you. You're not headed in the same direction as souls who were able to forgive their brothers and sisters, no matter how many times they were wronged, or their neighbors, or people from other religions, nationalities. Hatred is not good for anything. It's bad for your health when you're alive, and it's extremely bad for your spirit. Your soul will have already set its path in the opposite direction. These creatures will now know you and how to manipulate you. And we'll get back to that in a minute. Get that hate out. It could only hold you down. You could only fly if you take yourself lightly. I often wondered when I read the Bible, when you hear about these bad angels were cast out of heaven and sent to hell. I used to think, then why are they roaming earth? Well, this creature never left hell. It brought its hell with it. This creature mastered the fifth dimension and was able to create a portal for itself, invading our dimension, our fourth dimension, at will. We humans have no power like this. We will never have any technology that can do this. Like I said, this was powerful. It looked as powerful as a lion, and it could, I'm sure, easily ram me right into the wall with those horns coming out of its forehead, or just tear me apart limb from limb. It's looking straight at me, with its black eyes full of hatred, in a confrontational manner. Its eyes were black and had no pupils, just pure black. If you look at the picture in the on the cover of the book, you could see exactly what I was looking at. You know, most men talk on angles with each other. Not this creature, totally confrontationally, staring at me straight in the eyes. Now, it began to move its mouth and speak. I believe now it was only showing me and telling me the things that I could understand. As I said, I'm a bit skeptical myself. When I read about great angels that were created before time, who were powerful and beautiful, the ones that broke away and lost their beauty and became creatures, I'm not skeptical anymore. A lot of what happens next is unfathomable, incapable of being fully understood or fully explained. I'm going to give you every detail of what it said and what it did while it was here in my house. It stood there staring at me, which felt like an eternity, but it wasn't that long. Now, it wanted to say something, and sounds started to come out of its mouth, like guttural sounds, and it was trying to say like that, just like that, and it said, "No more." In between those noises, it made English that I could understand, but I could see how it was struggling to speak English. When it spoke, its mouth did not sync with what I was hearing, or whatever language or noise that is that it speaks. I guess in hell it wasn't English, but I heard English, and I thought, what does it mean, no more? The only thing I could think was no more prayers, no more trying to save souls. I didn't ask what it meant. As an artist, I was trying to study this creature. I knew if I survived this encounter, it was going to draw this creature right down to every detail. Like I said earlier, if I see it, I can draw it. I was trying to keep this part of my mind as calm as possible, so I could remember every detail. I was fixed mostly on this creature, but this raging blue fire had my attention. This was a fire that I could not hear burning. I could not feel any heat coming off it. I couldn't smell it. I couldn't see if anything was burning like wood or fuel, there was no crackling noises that you would hear if wood was burning. There's no smoke either. This fire had to be created by God himself. Later I was thinking, that's why it didn't seem to have any source to it at all. Like, what creature condemned in hell is going to keep adding fuel to a fire? This fire is never going to burn out forever. Because I was curious about this fire, the creature tried to speak again by making those gutturally noises, but I did understand what it said. It was said, in the middle of this, only your spirit can feel the effects of this fire. I could understand it said, only in between all that gutturally noises, only your spirit will feel the effects of this fire. Almost like it knew what I was thinking. I couldn't see any teeth when it spoke, just darkness in its mouth. What struck me about this creature's face was, although it looked like flesh or skin, it wasn't burnt. It was actually smooth. It just seemed like its skin was not being destroyed by this fire. Like I said, the top of its head was like the head of a horseshoe crab, so it probably wouldn't burn. But the rest of his face and neck should have been burnt. Anything that's engulfed in a raging fire would burn. What were the effects of this spiritual fire? It didn't elaborate. I would have liked to know. When we pass from this world into the next, these creatures are going to be waiting. They're masters of deception and treachery. They're ready to snare you into their nets by building this trapdoor of deceit, especially designed just for you. You know, when you pass, you're going to be all alone in a strange environment with no power, no way to help yourself, confronted by them. There's going to be no support for you. Not going to be any lawyers to help you. Just you in a totally foreign environment with creatures who are masters of it. They were powerful angels once. They were never babies that went to school or were taught by their parents. They've been around since the beginning of time. They can bewitch your spirit. They know how to seduce, entice, and beguile your soul. Once you pass through that chasm, that wall of fire, there's no coming back. I've come to realize that part of their deceit is leading us to believe that they are wild, out-of-control creatures, only capable of acting wild, crazy, and vicious. On the contrary, they're plotting, intelligent, organized, powerful entities. Once you pass, they're prepared to offer you interesting options. They have many wiles and deceptions. They'll show you their empire built on hatred, especially for those who have hatred rooted in their souls. They will show you how to use that hatred to alleviate all your pain, just as they do. In order not to be outwitted, is to be aware of their schemes. It chose its words with fastidious care. It said something that I took as a threat. It said in its gutturally voice, I am many, and many more wicked than I. That's what I heard. In between all of that, I am many, and many more wicked than I. And I thought, does this mean there's more coming? Is this the first of many visits? If I don't stop praying for lost souls, even more wicked creatures will manifest themselves in the future? I didn't know what it meant. I didn't ask. You know, souls heading in their direction, they don't want anyone to interfere with that. And that's what I was doing. You know, before this happened, I always wondered, where's heaven? Where's hell? Is it out past the heavens above us? Is hell somewhere below us? In another world? Are they somewhere outside of the universe? But after this creature appeared to me, with its hell, I realized hell is just one step away. Not somewhere far, far off, It could only be a small step, and you could be thrust into the abyss of the next dimension. So now I don't know what to do. He's still staring straight at me. The fire never stopped raging. The only time it took its eyes off me was to look down at my rosaries that I placed on the end table. It looked back up at me slowly. Then suddenly, its cheeks start to blow up, and I'm wondering now what's going to happen. Then it looked down at my rosary again, and it spit a giant saliva right on my rosaries like that. It ejected this saliva forcibly as a gesture of anger and contempt, so there would be no confusion about what it meant by no more. It didn't want to be making any more prayers. That was the one thing it didn't do slowly. It did it with a vengeance. When it did that act, it struck me of its contempt for the rosaries and prayers. I suddenly realized this creature moved slow, but it can move quickly when it wants to. Then I realized the whole time I was in a false sense of security. I probably couldn't move fast enough to get out of the house if it actually lunged at me. And I thought, how did something engulfed in such a raging fire able to conjure up saliva and spit? And that much of it. Now I saw that spit move through the air with such a force right on my rosaries like an explosion of saliva. I just witnessed something beyond scientific understanding or any laws of nature. All of this was not like a ghostly transparency. It was all solid, three-dimensional, like if I was standing right in front of you. It stood there very still, again staring at me straight in the eyes. I wish I had the presence of mind to pray or something. That's what I do for hours every day, but it never came to my mind. I was so engrossed in this apparition. I never thought of calling out to God or Jesus. Later on, when I was thinking about it, I realized neither are the fallen souls when their time comes. So this creature suddenly started to back out as slowly as it came in. The fire slowly dissipates. I looked down at my rosary, slowly poking at them, trying to see if they were still covered with saliva, But the fire dissipated. As the fire dissipated, so did the saliva. I could still feel that this creature was possessing the house. So the next morning, I went to church and received communion. When I came home, I decided to use the power and authority of Jesus' name. My wife keeps holy water in the kitchen. I grabbed a bowl of holy water. With every fiber of my being, I splashed holy water in every room, claiming as loud as I could, "In the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to leave this house immediately." And went into every room in the house, doing the same thing, even in the attic. When I finally got into the last bedroom, I said, and I splashed the holy water, "In the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to leave this house immediately." I heard the noises. I heard him making noises, his gutturally noises, like that. And then I heard like a swish noise, I heard a swish. So I heard that swish noise, and the curtains and the blinds and the windows moved violently back and forth and left. And that was the end of it. I haven't heard even a bump in the night since then. Now, if you would like a copy of this book, Between Love and Hate, The Devil is Real, it's a 350-page book. Every page is an enlightenment. If you think you're an adventurous person, press the Add to Cart button, as you see right here. An ebook will immediately arrive in your email. You could read it on your cell phone if you like. Now, the only other account of demons that I believe is when my brother Paul had a heart attack and died in the hospital. When they revived him, he told me that demons came for him when he was dead. I don't have time to tell you that story now. That's in the book. Maybe next time I'll tell you about that story. But God bless you.